Alex Carter stepped off the transport shuttle and felt the warm breeze of Viridian Prime hit his face. It was his first day of shore leave in 6 months, and he wanted nothing more than to forget about space stations and military duties for a while. The planet was beautiful, covered in forests that glowed with strange colors even in daylight. 2 suns hung in the sky, one yellow like Earth's sun and another smaller one that burned orange. He walked away from the small human settlement into the wilderness. His commanding officer had warned him not to go too far, but Alex needed the quiet. Growing up on a wildlife preserve in Colorado had taught him to trust the forest. Even an alien forest felt more like home than the metal corridors of a starship. The trees here were different from Earth trees. Their bark sparkled with tiny lights and their leaves hummed softly in the wind. The ground was covered in moss that changed colors when he stepped on it, shifting from blue to purple to green. Strange insects floated through the air, leaving trails of light behind them. Alex took out his camera and started recording everything. His mother would love to see this. She had been a veterinarian back on Earth, working with wild animals her whole life. He wished she could be here to see these alien creatures. Then he heard the sound. It was a cry of pain, raw and desperate. It came from somewhere deeper in the forest. Alex stopped walking and listened. The cry came again, louder this time. Every instinct told him something was badly hurt. He checked his gun, made sure his medical kit was still in his pack, and moved toward the sound. The forest grew thicker as he walked. Branches reached across the path and roots tried to trip him. The crying got louder and more painful to hear. Alex pushed through a wall of glowing vines and found himself in a small clearing. What he saw there made him stop breathing for a moment. A creature lay trapped in the middle of the clearing. It looked like a big cat similar to a leopard, but completely wrong in wonderful ways. Its fur was pure white, so white it almost hurt to look at. Parts of its body had patches that looked like crystal or glass, and they caught the light from the 2 suns. The creature was huge, maybe 6 feet long, not counting its tail. One of its back legs was caught in a metal trap, twisted at an angle that made Alex feel sick. The creature saw him and tried to stand. It bared its teeth, and Alex saw they glowed with a soft blue light. The growl that came from its throat was deep and full of warning. Its eyes were the strangest part. They were violet, a deep purple color that seemed to look right through him. Those eyes held intelligence. This was not just an animal. This was something that could think and feel and understand. Alex held up his hands slowly, showing he had no weapon. He spoke in a soft voice, the same voice his mother had used with frightened animals. It did not matter that the creature could not understand his words. Tone was universal. Fear and pain sounded the same in any language. The trap was old human technology, probably left by miners years ago. Alex hated seeing it. Humans were supposed to be better than this, leaving dangerous equipment behind on alien worlds. He moved closer, speaking the whole time. The creature watched him with those violet eyes, but did not attack. Its leg was bleeding. The white fur around the trap was stained red. He knelt down about 10 feet away from the creature. From his pack, he took out a ration bar and broke it in half. He tossed one piece toward the creature. It sniffed the food but did not eat. Good. It was smart enough to be cautious. Alex ate his half of the bar slowly, showing it was safe. Then he waited. 20 minutes passed. The creature finally ate the food. It kept watching Alex the whole time. He moved a little closer. The creature growled but did not try to bite him. Another 20 minutes. Another few feet closer. The 2 suns moved across the sky. Sweat ran down Alex's back. His legs hurt from kneeling, but he did not rush. His mother had taught him that patience was the most important tool when working with wild animals. They could smell fear, and they could sense when someone was trying to trick them. Alex thought about nothing but helping. He pushed away thoughts about what the creature might do to him. Those claws could tear him apart. Those glowing teeth could bite through his arm. But the creature was hurt and scared, and that mattered more than his safety. Finally, he was close enough to touch the trap. The creature tensed, every muscle in its body ready to fight or run. Alex moved very slowly. He examined the trap mechanism. It was a spring-loaded design meant to catch small game. The creature's leg was too large, and the trap had closed with terrible force. The bone might be broken. He took out his tools. The trap would need to be opened carefully, or it would cause more damage. Alex worked for over an hour. His fingers ached. The creature whimpered sometimes, and each sound made his heart hurt. He kept talking, kept his voice calm and steady. Slowly, Carefully, he released the spring tension. The trap's jaws opened. The creature pulled its leg free and immediately tried to run. It took 2 steps and collapsed. The leg would not support its weight. Alex waited for it to calm down. Then he approached again, holding his medical kit. The creature watched him with pain and confusion in those violet eyes. He cleaned the wound with antiseptic spray. The creature hissed but held still. Alex felt along the leg bone. It was fractured but not completely broken. He had splinted broken legs before on Earth animals. The principle was the same. He used a flexible biomedical splint from his kit, the kind that hardened when exposed to air. He wrapped the leg carefully, making sure the bone was straight. The whole process took 3 hours. By the time he finished, both suns were low in the sky. The forest was growing dark, and the bioluminescent plants were starting to glow brighter. Alex gave the creature pain medication from his kit, diluted in water. It drank carefully. He stood up slowly, ready to leave. His back ached and his hands were shaking from the careful work. The creature stood as well, balancing on 3 legs. It looked at him for a long moment. Then it did something Alex would never forget. It limped forward and pressed its forehead against his hand. The gesture felt important, like a promise or a thank you. The crystalline patches on its body glowed softly in the fading light. Alex felt warmth spread through his hand where they touched. It was not just heat. It was something else, something he did not have words for. A connection, maybe. An understanding between 2 different kinds of life. Then the creature turned and limped away into the darkening forest. Its white fur seemed to fade into the shadows and light until Alex could not see it anymore. He stood alone in the clearing, listening to the strange music of an alien forest at night. He walked back to the settlement slowly. When he reached the human base, the guards asked if he had a good walk. Alex nodded and said nothing about what he had found. He checked his camera and deleted the recordings. The creature was not in any database. If he reported it, scientists would come looking. They would want to study it, maybe capture it. Alex could not let that happen. Some things were better left as secrets. He returned to his ship the next day, carrying the memory of violet eyes and a moment of trust between human and alien. He never thought he would see the creature again. He was wrong. 5 years changed everything. Alex Carter was no longer a junior officer taking shore leave on frontier worlds. He was Captain Carter now, commander of his own ship. The exploration vessel Pioneer was not the biggest ship in the fleet, but it was fast and well-armed. More importantly, it had a crew he trusted completely. The bridge was quiet as they traveled through slipspace. Alex sat in the captain's chair reading reports on his tablet. His second-in-command, Jake Morrison, was running weapons drills with the tactical team. Lisa Brooks, his science officer, was in the lab analyzing data from their last survey. The rest of the crew of 38 were at their stations, doing the routine work that kept a starship running. But there was nothing routine about their current mission. The outer reaches was a dangerous place. It was a region of space that both humans and the Krillian collective claimed as their territory. The Krillians were an insectoid species, covered in dark armor plates and standing over 7 feet tall. They had 4 arms and compound eyes that saw in spectrums humans could not imagine. They were also extremely aggressive about their borders. Relations between humans and Krillians had been getting worse for months. There had been small fights along the border, ships destroyed, colonies threatened. Nobody wanted a full war, but it felt like one was coming anyway. The politicians on both sides were making angry speeches. The military commanders were moving fleets into position. Alex had been in enough wars to know what came next. The Pioneer's mission was to survey unclaimed systems in the outer reaches and establish which ones might be suitable for human colonies. It was the kind of mission that could easily turn into a fight if they ran into Krillian ships doing the same thing. Alex had made sure his crew was ready for that possibility. They dropped out of slipspace near a yellow star with 6 planets. The system was not on any charts, which meant neither humans nor Krillians had claimed it yet. Lisa immediately started running scans looking for anything interesting. The first 3 planets were gas giants useless for colonization. The 4th planet made her instruments light up with alerts. Lisa called Alex to the lab 30 minutes later. Her face was flushed with excitement, the way it always got when she found something unexpected. The scans showed energy signatures on the 4th planet that should not exist. They were too organized, too powerful. Something down there was generating massive amounts of power. Alex studied the readings. The energy patterns were not like anything human technology could produce. They were not like Krillian technology either. In fact, they did not match any known species in the database. That meant either they had found a new civilization, or they had found something very old. He made the decision to investigate. They moved the Pioneer into orbit around the planet. It was a beautiful world, covered in blue oceans and green continents. It looked a lot like Earth, actually. But when they zoomed in on the energy source, they saw something that made everyone on the bridge go silent. Ruins. Massive structures covering hundreds of square miles. They were built from a material that seemed to shift and change, sometimes solid and sometimes almost liquid. The architecture was unlike anything Alex had ever seen. Towers that twisted in impossible ways, buildings that seemed to exist in more than 3 dimensions, and everywhere carved symbols that hurt to look at too long. Lisa was almost shaking with excitement. She thought they might have found evidence of the precursors. The precursors were a legend among spacefaring species. The story said they had existed millions of years ago, long before any current civilization. They had supposedly seeded the galaxy with life and built impossible technology. Most scientists thought the precursors were just a myth. Lisa had always believed they were real. Alex authorized a landing party. He, Lisa, Jake, and 6 others took a shuttle down to the surface. The ruins were even more impressive up close. The material they were built from felt warm to the touch and seemed to pulse with a slow rhythm, like a heartbeat. The symbols carved everywhere glowed faintly in the shadows. They spent hours exploring, taking samples and recordings. Lisa's team tried to translate the symbols but could not make sense of them. They were not quite language and not quite mathematics, something in between maybe, or something completely different that human minds were not built to understand easily. Then the Pioneer's communications officer called down from orbit. His voice was tense. 3 ships had just entered the system. Big ones, Krillian warships. They were moving fast toward the planet. Alex ordered everyone back to the shuttle immediately. They lifted off and returned to the Pioneer in minutes. By the time they docked, the Krillian ships were already in orbit on the opposite side of the planet. The largest ship, a heavy cruiser covered in weapon ports, opened a communication channel. The Krillian commander appeared on the screen. His name was War Master Zeth, and he looked like every human nightmare of an alien monster. His armor was black and covered in spikes. His forearms ended in claws that could tear through metal. His compound eyes reflected the bridge lights in 1,000 tiny points. When he spoke, his voice was a series of clicks and hisses that the computer translated into human language. The message was simple. This system belonged to the Krillian Collective. The human ship was trespassing. They had 1 hour to leave or they would be fired upon. Alex felt his jaw tighten. The system was unclaimed. Neither side had any legal right to it. But the Krillians had more ships and more firepower. A fight would end badly for the Pioneer. He opened a channel back to the Krillian ship. He kept his voice calm and professional. He explained that the Pioneer was on a peaceful exploration mission under the terms of the Frontier Agreement. The ruins they had found were of scientific importance to all species. Leaving now would mean abandoning an important discovery. War Master Zeth did not care about the Frontier Agreement. He did not care about scientific importance. He cared about territory and power. The Krillian Collective had declared this region of space to be theirs, and they would defend it. The hour deadline stood. Alex cut the communication and turned to his crew. Jake wanted to fight. They had good weapons and good shields. Maybe they could take 1 Krillian ship at least. But 3 ships was too many. Lisa wanted to stay and keep studying the ruins. This discovery could change everything humanity knew about the galaxy. How could they just leave? Alex made a choice that surprised everyone. He sent a message to Earth Command explaining the situation and requesting backup. Then he told War Master Zeth that the Pioneer would remain in orbit until human reinforcements arrived. If the Krillians wanted to start a war over these ruins, they would have to fire the first shot. It was a dangerous gamble. The nearest human ships were 3 days away. The Krillians could destroy the Pioneer in minutes if they wanted to. But Alex was betting that War Master Zeth did not actually want to start a war. He was betting the Krillian commander would wait for orders from his superiors before attacking. The first day passed in tense silence. Both sides stayed in orbit watching each other. Alex kept the crew on high alert. Everyone slept in shifts. The weapons were charged and ready. The shields were at maximum power. If the Krillians attacked, they would at least go down fighting. On the second day, more ships arrived. But they were not human reinforcements. They were more Krillian vessels. 12 smaller strike craft joined the 3 heavy cruisers. The odds had gone from bad to impossible. Jake ran the calculations. If it came to a fight, the Pioneer would last maybe 4 minutes. Lisa made a breakthrough that night. She had been studying the recordings from the ruins non-stop, trying to understand the symbols. She finally realized they were not meant to be read like language. They were coordinates. The symbols were pointing to specific locations within the ruins like a map. She thought she knew where the map was leading. Alex made another dangerous decision. He took a shuttle down to the planet with a small team, while the Krillians were on the other side of their orbit. They had maybe 4 hours before the Krillians would see them. It was enough time if they were lucky. They followed the map deep into the ruins, down tunnels that went far underground. At the end, they found a chamber that took their breath away. Technology that made human science look like children playing with stones. Weapons, ships. Something that looked like it could open doorways through space itself. And in the center of it all, a warning that would change everything they thought they knew about the galaxy. The chamber was massive, easily the size of a football stadium. The walls glowed with soft blue light that seemed to come from within the material itself. In the center stood dozens of devices that hummed with power. Some looked like weapons, sleek and deadly. Others were harder to identify. Machines with no clear purpose, covered in controls that made no sense to human eyes. Lisa ran toward a bank of what looked like computer terminals. Her fingers flew over her scanner, trying to interface with the ancient technology. After several minutes, she managed to establish a connection. Information started flowing into her device, faster than she could read it. She pulled out a data storage unit and let it record everything. Jake stood guard at the entrance, his rifle ready. Alex walked through the chamber, trying to take it all in. This was proof that the precursors had existed. This was technology that could change everything. If humans could learn even a fraction of what was stored here, they would leap forward thousands of years in scientific knowledge. But something felt wrong. Alex could not explain it, but the chamber felt sad. These machines had been left behind by people who were gone. The dust on the floor had not been disturbed in ages. Whatever civilization had built this place, they were long dead, and they had left their technology here like a message in a bottle, hoping someone would find it. Lisa made a sound of shock. Alex rushed to her side. She was staring at her scanner screen, her face pale. She had managed to access some kind of historical database. The images flowing past showed things that made Alex's blood run cold. Planets burning, ships the size of moons tearing through space, and creatures. Things that looked like they were made of darkness and hunger, consuming entire worlds. The precursors had been real, and they had been powerful. They had spread across the galaxy, building wonders and uplifting younger species. But then something had come out of the dark space between galaxies. The database called them the Devourers. They were not like any life form the precursors had encountered. They did not want to conquer or negotiate. They only wanted to consume. The war had lasted for centuries. The precursors had thrown everything they had at the Devourers. They had built weapons that could destroy stars. They had created artificial intelligences more advanced than anything humans could imagine. Nothing worked. The Devourers kept coming, endless and hungry. Slowly, the precursors had been pushed back, their empire crumbling system by system. In their final days, the precursors had done something desperate. They had built these chambers all across the galaxy. Each one contained a warning and a gift. The warning was simple. The Devourers were still out there. They had gone dormant after consuming the precursors, but they were not dead. They were waiting, and when enough new civilizations had risen, when the galaxy was full of life again, they would wake up hungry. The gift was the technology in the chamber. Weapons and shields and engines that might give the younger races a chance. The precursors could not save themselves, but maybe they could save whoever came after them, if the younger races were smart. If they could work together instead of fighting each other. If they prepared for what was coming. Alex felt dizzy. This changed everything. The human-Krillian conflict was meaningless. They were fighting over territory while something infinitely more dangerous waited in the dark. Both species needed to know about this. Everyone needed to know. They had to stop fighting each other and start preparing. Then Jake shouted a warning. Alex's communicator buzzed with an urgent message from the Pioneer. The Krillian ships had detected their shuttle on the surface. They were moving to attack position. And more than that, they were targeting the ruins themselves. They were going to destroy everything in the chamber. Alex did not understand. Why would the Krillians destroy something so valuable? Then the truth hit him like a punch to the gut. Some of the Krillian leadership must already know about the precursor warning. They knew about the Devourers, and they had decided the best strategy was to keep everyone else ignorant. If other species did not know about the threat, there would be no united front. The Krillians could stay strong by keeping everyone divided. It was evil and it was stupid, but Alex understood the twisted logic. A united galaxy would be harder for the Krillians to dominate. Better to take their chances with the Devourers than risk losing power. He ran for the shuttle, Lisa and the others right behind him. They had to get off the planet before the orbital bombardment started. The shuttle launched just as the first energy beams hit the ruins. Explosions tore through the ancient structures. The chamber they had just left collapsed in fire and dust. Alex pushed the engines to maximum, racing for orbit. Behind them, the ruins were being systematically destroyed. Thousands of years of knowledge gone in minutes. But Lisa had the data. She had recorded everything from the database before they fled. The warning would not be lost. The Krillians could not bury the truth. Alex just had to get his crew and his ship back to human space alive. The shuttle docked with the Pioneer. Alex ran to the bridge and ordered immediate departure. But War Master Zexeth was not going to let them leave. All 15 Krillian ships moved to intercept. They formed a wall between the Pioneer and the edge of the system. The message was clear: nobody leaves alive. Then something unexpected happened. One of the Krillian heavy cruisers broke formation. It moved between the Pioneer and the other Krillian ships. A new voice came over the communications channel. Captain Thexus of the cruiser Razor's Edge. He spoke in broken but understandable human language. He said he could not be part of this. Destroying knowledge was wrong. Attacking a science vessel was without honor. He would help the humans escape. Alex did not have time to question this gift. He ordered the Pioneer to full speed. The ship leaped forward, protected by the bulk of the Razor's Edge. The other Krillian ships opened fire, but they were hesitant to hit their own vessel. That hesitation gave Alex the seconds he needed. The Pioneer reached the edge of the system and activated its slipspace drive. But the Krillian ships were fast. They caught up before the slipspace jump completed. Energy beams tore into the Pioneer's hull. Explosions ripped through the engine room. The shields failed. The ship was coming apart around them. Alex tried to abort the jump, tried to drop back into normal space, but the controls were not responding. The Pioneer emerged from slipspace 3 systems away, but only barely. Half the ship was destroyed. Life support was failing in 6 sections. 18 crew members were dead, killed when the engine room exploded. The ship was venting atmosphere and spinning out of control. Alex fought the controls, trying to stabilize their trajectory. They were falling toward the nearest planet, a barren rock with a thin atmosphere. Jake worked the navigation computer, trying to find a safe place to crash land. There was nothing safe. The planet's surface was all jagged rocks and deep canyons, but they had no choice. Alex aimed for the largest flat area he could see and prayed they would survive the landing. The Pioneer hit the ground at 200 miles per hour. The impact tore off the remaining engines. The hull split in 3 places. Emergency systems screamed warnings. Then everything went dark as the power failed. Alex woke up minutes later, blood running down his face. The bridge was a mess of broken equipment and injured crew. But they were alive. 20 of them had survived the crash. They had survived. But as Alex climbed out of the wreckage and looked at the barren landscape around them, he realized their problems were just beginning. The communications array was destroyed. The emergency beacon was gone. They were stranded on an unknown planet with no way to call for help, and somewhere above them in orbit, Krillian ships were arriving. They had been tracked through slipspace. The hunt was not over. The Krillians would make sure no one survived to deliver the warning about the Devourers. Alex gathered his crew and prepared for the fight of their lives. The planet's air was thin and tasted like metal. Alex pulled on his breathing mask and checked his weapon. Around him, the survivors of the Pioneer gathered what supplies they could from the wreckage: food, water, medical supplies, weapons, and ammunition. Everything they would need to survive while being hunted. 20 people. That was all that remained from a crew of 38. Alex knew every name, every face. He had recommended most of them for this mission. Now he had to keep them alive. He looked up at the sky and saw the burning trails of Krillian landing craft entering the atmosphere. They had maybe 2 hours before the enemy reached them. Jake organized the crew into teams. Combat-trained personnel would form the defense. Scientists and engineers would work on trying to get any communications equipment working. Medical staff would set up a triage station. Everyone had a job. Everyone had to contribute or they would all die. The landscape around them was harsh. Red rocks jutted up from the ground like broken teeth. Deep canyons cut through the terrain in every direction. In the distance, mountains rose against the purple sky. The place reminded Alex of pictures he had seen of Mars, back before it was terraformed. Lifeless and angry, but it was not completely lifeless. Lisa's scanner detected movement among the rocks. Native creatures, probably. They stayed hidden, watching the humans with caution. Alex hoped they were not predators. His crew had enough problems without adding alien monsters to the list. They moved away from the crash site, heading for a canyon that might provide cover. Alex led them through narrow passages between towering rock walls. The canyon twisted and turned, making it impossible to see more than 50 feet ahead. Good for hiding, bad if they got trapped. He kept the group moving, knowing the Krillians would land soon. They found a cave system carved into the canyon wall. It was not deep, but it would hide them from aerial scans. Alex posted guards at the entrance and let the others rest. Everyone was exhausted. Many were injured. Dr. Nathan Cross moved through the group, treating wounds with the limited medical supplies they had. Burns, broken bones, cuts from the crash. It was a miracle anyone had survived. Lisa worked on her data storage device, making sure the precursor information was intact. Everything they had learned about the Devourers was on that device. If they died here, the warning would die with them. She made 3 backup copies and gave them to different people, better to spread the risk. That night, the Krillians started hunting. Alex heard their ships overhead, sweeping the area with powerful searchlights. He ordered complete silence and no fires. The crew huddled in the cave, barely breathing. The Krillian ships passed overhead 3 times but did not detect them. For now, they were safe. The next morning brought new problems. Food and water were already running low. The planet's water was contaminated with minerals that would make them sick. They had purification tablets, but not enough for more than a few days. Jake suggested they try to reach higher ground. Maybe they could find a better position, somewhere defensible where they could hold out longer. Alex agreed. They could not stay in the cave forever. They moved out at dawn, staying low and using the canyon walls for cover. The rock formations created a maze that helped hide their movements, but it also meant they got lost twice, wasting precious time and energy. On the second day, the Krillians changed tactics. They deployed ground troops, dozens of armored soldiers spreading out to search the canyons. They also released seeker drones, small flying machines that hunted for human biosignatures. The drones were the real problem. They could detect body heat and breathing patterns from hundreds of feet away. The first drone found them that afternoon. It appeared around a bend in the canyon, red sensors glowing as it scanned the area. Jake shot it down before it could transmit their location. But now the Krillians knew where to look. More drones would come, and behind them soldiers. Alex made a hard decision. They needed to split up. A small team would lead the drones away, making noise and leaving an obvious trail. The main group would head in a different direction, moving quietly toward the mountains. It was risky. The decoy team might not survive, but it gave everyone else a chance. He asked for volunteers. Jake immediately stepped forward. So did Danny Price, one of the engineers. Kelly Hughes, their communications specialist, joined them. Nathan Cross wanted to come too, but Alex needed him with the main group. Someone had to keep the injured alive. In the end, 5 people made up the decoy team. Alex led them personally. They said quick goodbyes. Lisa hugged Alex and made him promise to survive. He could not make that promise, but he nodded anyway. Then the 2 groups split up. Lisa led 15 people toward the mountains. Alex took his 4 volunteers and headed deeper into the canyons, making as much noise as they dared. The plan worked. 3 more drones found them within an hour. Jake destroyed 2, but the third got away and transmitted their position. Soon they could hear Krillian soldiers moving through the canyons, closing in from multiple directions. The hunt was on. They ran through the maze of rocks, taking shots at the drones when they appeared. Danny took a hit from one of the drone weapons, his leg badly burned by an energy blast. Nathan stayed with him, trying to treat the wound while the others provided cover. Alex knew they could not keep this up much longer. They were getting tired and the Krillians were getting closer. By the third day, they were down to 3 people. Danny and Nathan had found a hiding spot and would wait there. Maybe the Krillians would miss them. Maybe they would survive. Alex, Jake, and Kelly kept moving, leading the main pursuit away. Their ammunition was almost gone. Their food was finished. Kelly had a broken arm from falling on the rocks. Jake was limping from an old injury that had reopened. They found themselves trapped in a narrow ravine. The walls rose straight up on both sides, too steep to climb. Behind them, Krillian soldiers were advancing. Ahead, more soldiers blocked the only exit. Alex counted at least 24 enemy troops. He checked his weapon. 1 charge left, 1 shot. Then they would have to fight with knives and rocks. Jake laughed, which surprised Alex. The tactical officer shook his head and said at least they had led the enemy on a good chase. Lisa and the others had probably made it to the mountains by now. Maybe they would find a way to signal for help. Maybe the data would survive even if they did not. That was something at least, Alex agreed. They had done their job. He raised his weapon, ready to sell his life as expensively as possible. Kelly stood beside him, her good arm holding a knife. Jake checked his rifle one last time. The Krillians advanced slowly, confident in their victory. Their dark armor gleamed in the purple light from the sky. For some reason, Alex thought of Earth. He thought of his mother on the wildlife preserve, working with injured animals. He thought of a forest on Viridian Prime 5 years ago. He thought of violet eyes and white fur and a moment of connection between 2 different forms of life. It was strange, the things you remembered at the end. Then something impossible happened. A sound echoed through the ravine, a cry that was not human and not Krillian. It was wild and fierce and somehow familiar. Alex looked up just as a white shape dropped from the top of the ravine wall, moving like lightning-made flesh. And behind it came others, dozens of them, glowing in the shadows. The creatures from Viridian Prime had found him, and they had brought an army. The white creature hit the ground between Alex and the advancing Krillians. It was massive now, easily twice the size it had been 5 years ago. Its crystalline patches blazed with inner light, casting strange shadows on the ravine walls. Those violet eyes met his for just a moment, and Alex felt recognition surge through him. It remembered. After all this time and all these light years, it remembered the man who had freed it from a trap. Behind it, more of its kind poured into the ravine. They moved like nothing Alex had ever seen, flowing over the rocks like water, impossibly fast and graceful. Some were white like the first one. Others had different colors, gray and silver and pale gold. All of them had those glowing crystalline patches and eyes that burned with intelligence. The Krillians opened fire. Energy beams cut through the air, hitting rocks and exploding against the ravine walls. But the creatures were already moving. They scattered in every direction, too fast to track. Their claws left glowing trails in the air. Within seconds, they were among the Krillian soldiers. It was not a battle. It was a demonstration. The creatures did not kill the Krillians, though they clearly could have. Instead, they disarmed them with surgical precision. Weapons were torn from grips. Armor was peeled away like paper. Krillian soldiers were thrown against walls hard enough to stun but not kill. In less than 3 minutes, every enemy soldier in the ravine was unconscious or disabled. The white creature approached Alex slowly. It lowered its head and pressed its forehead against his hand, just as it had done 5 years ago. Alex felt warmth spread through his arm, and with it came something else. Not words exactly, but meaning. Images and emotions flowing directly into his mind. He understood suddenly that this was not telepathy in any human sense. It was something deeper, a sharing of consciousness. The creature showed him memories, a species that had evolved alongside the precursors millions of years ago. The precursors had found them as simple predators and recognized their potential. Through gentle guidance over millennia, the precursors had helped the creatures develop intelligence and technology. They called themselves the Silvery, and they were far older than humanity could imagine. The Silvery had witnessed the rise and fall of countless civilizations. They had watched the precursors battle the Devourers and lose. After the precursors fell, the Silvari had taken it upon themselves to watch over the younger races. They did not interfere openly. They observed from the shadows, waiting to see which species might prove worthy of the precursor legacy. 5 years ago, when Alex had freed one of them from a trap, the Sylvari had taken notice. They had been watching him ever since. Not just him, but humanity as a whole. They had seen humans show compassion to alien species even when there was no benefit. They had seen humans sacrifice themselves to protect others. And they had decided that humans might be ready. Alex felt tears on his face. The connection broke, and he was back in the ravine staring into those violet eyes. The white Sylvari made a sound that might have been approval or affection. Then it turned to the others of its kind and made a series of calls. They responded immediately, moving through the canyons with purpose. Within an hour, the Sylvari had gathered all the human survivors. Lisa and her group were brought from the mountains, unharmed and amazed. Nathan and Danny were found in their hiding spot and carried carefully to rejoin the others. All 20 humans were alive, protected by creatures they had not known existed until today. The Sylvari also gathered the Krillian soldiers, disarming them but treating their injuries. The Krillians were terrified at first, but the Sylvari showed no hostility. They simply kept the soldiers contained while their leaders decided what to do next. Above the planet, the Krillian ships in orbit had received a message. It was not in any language they knew, but somehow they understood it perfectly. Leave or face consequences beyond their understanding. The Krillian ships left. They had no choice. Their sensors showed energy readings from the planet's surface that dwarfed anything their weapons could produce. Whoever or whatever these creatures were, they had technology that made Krillian warships look like toys. War Master Zeth retreated, but he sent a priority message to his superiors. Something new had entered the game. The Sylvari built a temporary shelter for the humans using technology that seemed like magic. Structures grew from the ground in minutes, made from a material that was warm and comfortable. Food appeared, synthesized from local elements but perfectly safe for human consumption. Medical equipment far beyond anything Alex had seen healed injuries that should have taken months to recover from. Over the next few days, the white Sylvari spent hours with Alex teaching him their language and history. Alex learned that the Sylvari had been waiting for this moment. They had known the precursor chambers existed throughout the galaxy. They had known someone would eventually find them and learn the truth about the Devourers. They had been preparing for that day. The Sylvari revealed themselves to both the Human Alliance and the Krillian Collective. They appeared before the leaders of both species and delivered a simple message. The age of isolation was over. The younger races had reached a point where they needed to know the truth. The Devourers were real and they were coming. Not today, maybe not for 100 years, but they would come eventually, and the galaxy needed to be ready. The revelation changed everything overnight. The human-Krillian conflict ended within weeks. Faced with an existential threat that dwarfed their territorial disputes, both sides agreed to peace. Captain Thexus, the Krillian who had helped the pioneer escape, became a hero to his people. He argued that honor and cooperation were more important than conquest. Many Krillians agreed with him. Alex was promoted to admiral and given command of a joint task force. Humans, Krillians, and Sylvari working together to study the precursor technology and prepare defenses. It was not always easy. Old hatreds did not disappear instantly, but the threat of the Devourers kept everyone focused on what mattered. The white Sylvari, whom Alex had privately named Ghost, became his constant companion and official advisor. Other species began to share their own stories. A Krillian scientist remembered showing mercy to a wounded alien creature years ago. A trader from another species recalled a human who had helped them when no one else would. Small moments of kindness scattered across the galaxy had built invisible bridges. 10 years passed. The galaxy was different now. Unity Station orbited a neutral world, a massive structure built by a dozen species working together. It served as headquarters for the Defense Initiative and as proof that cooperation was possible. Ships from every allied species patrolled the borders of known space, watching for any sign of the Devourers. Admiral Alex Carter stood in the command center of Unity Station, reviewing defense reports. Ghost stood beside him, now officially recognized as the Sylvari ambassador to the Alliance. Through the windows, Alex could see ships from a dozen species moving in coordinated patterns. It was beautiful in a way, this unity born from necessity. A young human ensign approached nervously. She was fresh from the academy, full of questions about how humanity had become leaders in the Galactic Alliance. She asked Alex what he thought humanity's greatest strength was. It was a question he had been asked many times, He looked at Ghost, remembering a forest on Viridian Prime, remembering a choice to help a wounded creature even though it could have killed him, remembering the moment when that choice had saved his life and the lives of his crew. He smiled and gave the ensign an answer he truly believed. Strength is not about what you can destroy, he told her. It is about what you choose to save, even when there is no profit in it, even when no one is watching, even when the thing you are saving might never be able to repay you. That is what makes us human. That is what makes us worthy of standing with these other great species. Ghost's crystalline patches glowed softly in agreement. The ensign saluted and returned to her station inspired. Alex turned back to the reports, but his mind wandered to the future. Somewhere in the darkness between galaxies, the Devourers were stirring. Ancient sensors were detecting movement in regions of space that had been empty for millions of years. The threat was real and it was coming, but this time the galaxy was ready. Not because they had the best weapons or the strongest shields. They were ready because they had learned to work together. They had learned that compassion was not weakness. They had learned that helping others, even others who were different and strange and possibly dangerous, was the foundation of civilization. The precursors had fallen because they fought alone. The younger races would survive because they fought together. And it had all started with one human showing kindness to an injured animal in a glowing forest, expecting nothing in return. That small act of compassion had changed the fate of the galaxy. That was humanity's true power. That was what would save them all.